Hi, this is Tom McNamara, Associate Editor of IGN PC, here with the video review of Titan Quest, developed by Iron Lore and published by THQ. Although Iron Lore isn't a household name, it's headed up by Brian Sullivan of Age of Empires fame and staffed by a wide variety of industry veterans. As you've probably seen by now, Titan Quest is heavily inspired by the Diablo series of action RPGs. Some may even consider it a spiritual successor. It has a very similar camera style, combat system, and scope progression, although it looks much better. We found that with a Dell XPS containing a 3.4 GHz P4, 2 GB of RAM, and a Radeon X1900 XT, we couldn't enable the game's own anti-aliasing routines without encountering some occasional but significant performance issues. So we recommend either leaving that off or enabling it in the Windows control panel rather than in-game. In fact, as good as Titan Quest looks, and as assured as its smooth gameplay is, there are several elements that seem like they were better on paper than they were in reality. I think that the chief problem I had with Titan Quest was its sheer size. Now, I'm all for long, engaging experiences, but those 35 or so hours of game, with that comes a lot of repetition. Titan Quest is split into 3 successive campaigns taking you through ancient Greece, Egypt, and China, but it becomes quickly evident that a new location doesn't necessarily lead into some fresh things to do. There are only so many types of creatures in the game, and many of them feel like the same creature in a new skin. In Greece you fight harpies, while in Egypt you fight sand wings, but they are arguably identical creatures beneath the skin. Skeletons and zombies come in dozens of flavors, but their abilities don't get enhanced as much as their hit points and damage dealing. On the other hand, this is nothing new in the world of RPGs, and many players will probably be able to shrug off the lack of variety that reveals itself after a few hours of play. After all, the real meat of the game is a cool loot and some exciting, difficult boss fights, right? Well, unfortunately, the loot table and distribution system has its own quandaries, and the boss fights can be surprisingly easy if you're set up with a little assistance. As a conjurer, I have a lick, basically a skeleton wizard, enslaved to me, and too often I was able to simply run around in a circle while my minion chipped down the big nasty guy's health bar. Big nasty guy never really paid much attention to him, despite the fact that I wasn't doing any damage and my minion was doing all of it. At times, this mechanic makes some key encounters downright anticlimactic, and it occurs to me that this isn't the only unintentional exploit hidden under the hood of the game. Other times I was able to attack creatures right on the edge of the screen and they wouldn't react. Other times the enemies would notice me or my minions through a wall and attack us, which is a bit troublesome since the minions of Titan Quest are unusually bloodthirsty and can't be ordered into or take defensive or passive modes. In fact, half the time it was my lick who was taking the initiative, attacking creatures out of my field of view and drawing them towards us. I would have liked to have been able to tell my creature who to target and to make them retreat on my order. Lastly, the loot tables. As far as I can tell, they don't scale as you progress through the game. Instead, it appears to be a flat rarity system where at any point you could get low-level junk or an exotic set piece. The 3 different zones offer different gear upgrades, but the loot system itself seems to draw from the same statistical pool no matter how far you progressed. What this means is that the reward for getting deep into the game and exploring all across the world is somewhat blunted because you can theoretically play your way through the exact same section endlessly and come up with nearly the same loot you would anywhere else. There are cosmetically different armor types with steadily increasing base stats, yes, but as a spellcaster, this particular armor class doesn't affect me in practice. I'm looking for staves, rings, bracers, and the like, while beefy helms and chest pieces are pretty irrelevant to my situation. And with a system that puts you at a periodic resurrection point every time you load a new session, this mechanic is entirely possible since everything responds when you load a save game. Saving the game actually just records your stats and inventory but doesn't address what you killed where, and as such you will never have a problem with money. You can just repeat the same section until you've unloaded enough loot to buy whatever you need, although I hardly ever bought anything because what I found was typically better than what the vendors offered. By the time I was done, I had well over 1 million gold pieces, which is a ton by any measure. I'm confident that some of those issues could be fixed with a patch or two, and confident that Iron Lore is an experienced and talented developer who could give TQ some post-launch love. But as it stands right now, I found myself fondly recalling Diablo 2 more than I was looking forward to seeing what happened next in Titan Quest.